The ballroom was silent, except for the slow click of her heels. Everyone turned as the doors opened, and there she was, the woman they'd all once laughed at. Lucas froze mid-toast, his champagne glass trembling slightly. He hadn't seen her in years, not since the bet. And now, standing in front of him, she looked nothing like the woman he thought he'd broken. The murmurs started almost instantly. "Is that her?" someone whispered. But Lucas couldn't hear them. Because in that single moment, under the crystal lights of his charity gala, the man who had once felt untouchable suddenly wished he could disappear. The irony? Tonight's gala was in her honor. The foundation that saved thousands of women from body image trauma was hers. And Lucas, the self-made millionaire who married her as a cruel joke, was listed as the special guest. He looked around, searching for a way out, for a way to rewrite the past with a single fake smile. But her eyes found his, steady, calm, unreadable. There was no hatred there, just strength, and that scared him more than anything. You see, this wasn't how it was supposed to go. Lucas had it all, the cars, the fame, the friends who worshipped his arrogance. He was the kind of man who believed everything and everyone had a price tag. Until one night, after too many drinks and too much ego, someone dared him to do the unthinkable. "Bet you wouldn't marry her," they laughed. And Lucas, drunk on pride and power, said yes. He thought it would be funny. He thought it would be easy. He thought she'd crumble under the weight of his cruelty. But he was wrong, because the woman he mocked would one day become the mirror that showed him everything he tried to hide behind his money. And the bet that began in arrogance would end up changing two lives forever. So how does a millionaire, obsessed with perfection, end up falling for the very woman he once used as a joke? Let's rewind, before the gala, before the fame, before the fall. Welcome, story lovers. From where are you watching? Drop your city name in the comments so we can see how far our story travels. Before she ever became the woman who silenced a millionaire's arrogance, Emma Davis was just Emma. She grew up in a small Ohio town, the kind of place where life felt predictable, church on Sundays, same neighbors for decades, and gossip that traveled faster than the mail. Her parents were simple folks, her mother a school secretary, her father a mechanic. They didn't have much, but they had enough, and in their tiny home filled with second-hand furniture and warm casseroles, Emma felt safe. She was always the sweet one. The one who helped carry groceries for the old lady next door. The one teachers adored because she stayed after class to wipe the chalkboards clean. But she was also the girl people whispered about behind her back. Pretty face. Shame about the size, they'd say. By high school, those whispers became her shadow. She learned early that some people see your worth only through a number on a scale. But Emma refused to let that define her. She threw herself into her studies. Biology, psychology, nutrition. Ironically, the girl they called unhealthy knew more about health than most doctors. Her dream was to become a therapist, someone who could help young girls like her build self-worth before the world tore it down. She even got into college on a partial scholarship. But dreams have a fragile way of slipping through the cracks of reality. When her mother fell ill with a heart condition during Emma's sophomore year, tuition became a luxury they could no longer afford. She left college quietly, no dramatic goodbye, no farewell post. Just a simple decision, family first. She took 2 part-time jobs, one at a diner and one at a small local clinic, just to keep the bills from drowning them. Life didn't break her all at once. It chipped away in small, careful pieces. The day her father's garage went under. The winter her mother's medications doubled in price. The month their landlord raised the rent. Each time Emma adjusted, she learned to live smaller, dream quieter, smile through exhaustion. But even then, she refused to grow bitter. Every morning before her shift, she would look in the mirror, smooth down her hair, and whisper to herself, "Grace over anger, always." Then came the night everything truly changed. Her mother passed away suddenly, alone in the hospital room while Emma was finishing a late-night shift at the diner. The guilt ate at her. She kept thinking, if I'd been there. But grief doesn't deal in logic. It just sits heavy in the bones. In the months that followed, Emma lost more than her mother. She lost her compass. She moved to the city hoping for a fresh start, but city life has a cruel way of amplifying loneliness. The stares, the side comments, the dating apps that reminded her daily she didn't fit the type. Still, she kept going, because that's what survivors do. They move forward even when no one's clapping. She found work as a receptionist at a wellness center, a place ironically obsessed with perfect bodies and detox programs. Most clients barely looked her in the eye. Some treated her like the furniture. And yet she greeted everyone with the same kindness. What they didn't know was that every night after closing the office, she stayed behind, cleaning, filing, learning. She'd sneak into the nutrition seminars when no one was watching, scribbling notes in a worn notebook. Her mind never stopped hungering for knowledge, even if her world had stopped believing she was capable of greatness. And then, one evening, as she was locking up, a group of wealthy men entered the center after hours for a private party. Among them was Lucas Reed. He wasn't just rich, he was the kind of rich that walks into a room like it owns the air. Billionaire investor, self-proclaimed philanthropist, tabloid regular. The kind of man who could destroy a reputation with a smile. He didn't notice Emma at first. She was invisible in that world. But that night, something strange happened. A careless joke, a cruel bet, and her name got pulled into it. But that's for later. For now, understand this. Before the mockery, before the scandal, before the bet, there was a woman who had already been fighting silent battles for years. A woman who had buried dreams under duty, who had known loss, humiliation, and survival in equal measure. She wasn't fragile. She wasn't naive. She was quietly powerful in a way Lucas Reed, for all his arrogance, could never comprehend. Her strength wasn't loud, it was steady. Her beauty wasn't in her shape, it was in her spirit. And that, ironically, would be the very thing that changed him. But the road to redemption doesn't begin with love. It begins with cruelty. And soon, Emma was about to walk straight into the storm that would test everything she believed about kindness, dignity, and self-worth. Because the night Lucas Reed walked into her life was the night the world decided to watch her burn, not knowing she'd rise from the ashes stronger than anyone expected. It started on an ordinary Friday. Emma was staying late at the wellness center, again, because the janitorial staff had quit unexpectedly and someone had to clean before morning clients arrived. She never complained. It was quiet at night and she liked that. The hum of air vents, the smell of disinfectant, the feeling that she still mattered to a place that barely noticed her during the day. That night, however, would change everything. The private party she'd seen once before was back. Champagne bottles, loud laughter, and the kind of careless money that left broken glass and ego stains everywhere. Among the guests was Lucas Reed. He was every headline come to life, handsome in a sculpted, detached way, his suit tailored within an inch of arrogance. People didn't just admire him. They performed around him, like satellites orbiting a sun that never truly saw them. Emma had only spoken to him once before, a polite good evening he hadn't even acknowledged. But tonight something strange happened. As she gathered empty glasses from a corner table, a group of his friends started teasing him. "Come on, Lucas," one of them said. "You've conquered every boardroom and every model in the city. You think you could charm anyone?" Lucas smirked, clearly entertained. "Anyone?" The friend's eyes slid toward Emma, who stood quietly at the edge of the room, trying to blend into the wallpaper. "She doesn't even look at guys like you. Maybe that's the real challenge," Lucas laughed. It was sharp, cold, the kind of sound that turned a room into a stage. "What are you suggesting?" "A bet," another chimed in, already half drunk on champagne and cruelty. "Bet you can't get her to fall for you. A month, no tricks, no lies. Just charm. Prove you're as irresistible as you think." For a moment, Lucas hesitated. Not because he felt guilt, he didn't, but because the absurdity amused him. Then he looked at Emma again, her plain uniform, her tired eyes, her weight that society mocked, but her posture that somehow remained dignified. "Fine," he said, grinning. "You're on." The laughter that followed was the kind that cuts deep, even if the person it's aimed at can't hear the full words. But Emma heard enough. That night she walked home in silence. She didn't cry. She didn't even tell anyone. She just replayed the laughter in her mind over and over until it became fuel. The next morning, Lucas showed up early to the center. For the first time, he greeted her. He made small talk, awkward, forced, the way people do when they're pretending kindness for sport. But Emma didn't know about the bet. Not yet. Days passed. Then weeks. Lucas began visiting more often, donating to the center, sponsoring programs, bringing her coffee. His charm was disarming, his confidence magnetic. He knew how to make anyone feel seen. He'd built an empire doing exactly that. But with Emma, something unexpected happened. She wasn't impressed. When he complimented her, she smiled politely and went back to work. When he told stories about his yacht, she asked how much food that yacht money could buy for the homeless. When he tried to impress her, she asked him simple, honest questions he couldn't answer, questions about meaning, about happiness, about guilt. She wasn't playing his game. And for the first time, Lucas realized he didn't want her to. Meanwhile, his friends, the ones who made the bet, kept watching. They wanted proof. So, she falling for it yet? They'd text. He laughed it off, pretending it was still a game. But inside, he was confused, even restless. Because this woman, the one they mocked, had something he didn't, peace. Then came the charity auction. The event was Lucas's idea, a way to raise funds for wellness initiatives. He invited Emma to help coordinate, saying it would look great on her resume. She hesitated, but eventually agreed. What she didn't know was that the same friends who started the bet were attending. And they hadn't forgotten the joke. During the auction, one of them, sloppy, drunk, and cruel, decided to remind everyone of the secret game. He leaned over to Emma, smirking. "You know why Lucas talks to you, right? It's not what you think." Lucas froze as he heard the words spill out. Emma looked at him, her face pale, her eyes searching for denial, for anything. But Lucas said nothing. And silence in that moment was as cruel as confession. She excused herself, walked out quietly, and disappeared into the night. No shouting, no tears. Just the calm of someone who'd finally seen the truth. For Lucas, it should have been the end of a stupid game. But instead, it marked the beginning of his unraveling. He couldn't stop thinking about her. The way she never played the victim. The way she carried herself with unshakable dignity. He tried to justify his actions. It was just a joke. Everyone does stupid things. But deep down, he knew better. He'd broken something pure, and that realization haunted him more than failure ever had. Weeks turned into months. The center's management changed, and Emma quietly resigned. Rumor had it she moved to another city, maybe started a foundation for women's mental health. No one really knew. But one night, scrolling through the news, Lucas found an article. Former receptionist launches self-esteem program for women recovering from body image trauma. There she was, smiling, radiant, confident. The same woman he once mocked was now helping thousands heal from the very pain he'd contributed to. It hit him harder than any business loss ever could. That's when the guilt turned into resolve. Lucas began donating anonymously to her foundation. He cut ties with the toxic circle that once fueled his arrogance. For the first time in years, he went quiet. No interviews, no parties, no expensive distractions. But life has a way of testing whether a man's change is real or just convenient. And Lucas was about to face a trial that would force him to confront what truly mattered. Because redemption isn't about grand gestures. It's about who stands by you when everything else disappears. The bet was over. The game had ended. But the consequences were only beginning. The charity gala was supposed to be Lucas's night. Bright lights, champagne glasses clinking, cameras flashing, his name echoing across the marble hall like a royal decree. He stood tall in his tailored black tuxedo, the portrait of success. At his side, Amelia walked in, wearing a deep emerald gown that shimmered like quiet revenge. The room fell into stunned silence. It wasn't just her weight loss that left everyone speechless. It was her confidence, her poise, her refusal to shrink for anyone. The woman Lucas had once married as a cruel joke now moved with the grace of a queen reclaiming her throne. Lucas felt something twist inside his chest, a strange, choking mix of pride and guilt. For the first time, his arrogance cracked, but his business partner Ethan noticed it and smirked. "Didn't think she'd actually show up," Ethan whispered. "You really turned that charity stunt into a full-time job, huh?" Lucas shot him a look, but Ethan wasn't done. "You know what's funny? The board thinks she's your lucky charm. Your company's image shot up ever since you settled down with her. Maybe we should thank her for keeping you relevant." Lucas's jaw tightened. The words burned because they were partly true. He had built his empire on appearances, polished lies, and perfect smiles. But Amelia, she was real, too real. Then the host tapped the mic. "Tonight's highlight, our CEO, Lucas Ward, and his inspiring wife, Amelia." The applause was forced, like everyone was waiting for a scene. Amelia stepped forward, her heels clicking like thunder in slow motion. Lucas smiled for the cameras, the same rehearsed grin he'd worn 1,000 times, until she took the mic. Her voice was calm but sharp enough to cut glass. "I used to think love was something you earned," she began. "That if you worked hard enough, changed yourself enough, someone might finally see your worth." The crowd leaned in. Lucas's fake smile faltered. "But I learned something," Amelia continued, her eyes locking on him. "Sometimes love doesn't fail. You just gave it to the wrong person." Gasps rippled through the hall. Lucas froze. He didn't know this speech. This wasn't part of the plan. Amelia reached into her clutch and pulled out a folded document, their prenuptial agreement. "Lucas once made a bet," she said quietly, her voice trembling just enough to sound human. "A bet that he could marry me, reshape me, and turn me into his masterpiece. But I'm not his project. I'm the lesson he never wanted to learn." A low murmur rolled through the audience. Lucas stepped forward. "Amelia, that's enough." "No, Lucas," she interrupted. "It's just beginning." She laid the papers on the podium. "You see, I found the emails. The ones you sent your friends. The ones that called me your charity case, your PR redemption arc." The photographer's flashes erupted like lightning. Ethan's smirk vanished. The audience shifted in disbelief. Lucas's empire, built on vanity, was crumbling under the weight of his own words. "Do you remember what you said the night you proposed?" she whispered, eyes glistening. "You said I was brave for standing next to you." "No, Lucas. You were the one afraid of being seen for who you really are." The room was silent now. No applause, no whispers. Just the sound of truth filling the air. She turned, her gaze steady but sad. "I loved you once," she said softly. "But tonight I love myself more." With that, she walked off the stage, head high, gown trailing like victory. Every camera turned to follow her. Every face watched her go. Lucas stood frozen, his empire melting around him, not because she exposed his secret, but because for the first time he realized what he'd truly lost. Not a bet, not an image, a woman who had turned his cruelty into her courage. The reporters swarmed, the microphones rose, and his voice, once commanding, came out as a whisper. "Amelia, wait." But she didn't. The doors closed behind her, echoing like judgment. And in that silence, the millionaire finally met his poverty, his soul stripped bare before the world he'd tried to impress. Amelia didn't look back. The gala doors closed, and with them a painful chapter of her life. She walked into the cool night air, breathing in freedom for the first time in years. No cameras, no whispers. Just silence and peace. She rented a small apartment overlooking the city skyline. It wasn't luxury, but it was hers. For months, she rebuilt herself piece by piece, without filters, without pretense. She began teaching online wellness classes for women like her, women who had been mocked, shamed, or made to feel less than human. Her words weren't about diets or beauty. They were about dignity, about reclaiming the body and the soul that the world tried to rewrite. Her channel grew faster than she expected. Within a year, millions watched her videos, not for her looks, but for her light. She spoke about self-worth, forgiveness, and the dangerous illusion of perfection. Brands began reaching out, but she turned most of them down. "If I have to sell pain to make profit," she said, "then I'm no different than the man I left." Meanwhile, Lucas Ward's empire began to sink. The scandal from that night spread faster than wildfire. Shareholders pulled out, sponsors dropped their names, and the man who once controlled rooms with a single word suddenly couldn't control his own reputation. He issued apologies, statements, interviews, but the public wasn't buying redemption scripted by PR teams. 1 year later, a journalist from Forbes Women requested an interview with Amelia. She hesitated, then agreed. When the interviewer asked, "Do you ever think about Lucas?" Amelia smiled softly. "I don't hate him," she said. "He gave me the stage that destroyed him and built me." That quote went viral, not because it was vengeful, but because it was free of hate. Months later, a letter arrived at her office. No return address, just her name in familiar handwriting. Inside, a short note. "You were never the bet, Amelia. I was. I bet against love. I bet against kindness. And I lost everything. Thank you for proving me wrong." Lucas, she didn't cry. She didn't smile. She just folded the letter neatly and placed it in a box labeled Lessons. Years passed. Amelia's Wellness Foundation expanded globally, offering scholarships for women pursuing self-development, therapy, or higher education. Her story became a symbol of second chances, not the kind you wait for, but the kind you create. Every time she walked onto a stage, she carried her past with pride, not as a scar, but as proof. She often said, "Healing isn't about forgetting who hurt you. It's about remembering who you were before they tried to define you." And Lucas, he disappeared from headlines for years. Until one quiet afternoon, Amelia was invited to speak at a corporate leadership seminar. Halfway through her talk, she noticed a familiar face sitting in the back row. Older, humbler, quieter. Lucas. After her session, he approached her, hands trembling slightly. "I didn't come to apologize again," he said softly. "I came to listen." For a moment, the world seemed to pause. She nodded. "Then I hope you heard what I meant, not just what I said." He nodded back, eyes glistening, then walked away. No drama, no grand reunion, just closure, clean and complete. That night, Amelia stood by her window as the city lights flickered below. Once upon a time, those lights had blinded her. Now, they simply glowed, quietly, beautifully, like peace itself. She whispered to herself, maybe love was never the prize. Maybe it was the mirror. And in that reflection, she no longer saw the woman who was used as a bet. She saw the woman who won by walking away. Thanks for watching. If Amelia's journey touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Because sometimes, the most powerful revenge isn't payback, it's peace. They once said she wasn't good enough, not pretty enough, not thin enough, not worthy of love. But life has a way of proving that the world's standards mean nothing when your soul stands tall. Amelia was never the joke. She was the lesson. Because while Lucas played for pride, she lived for peace. And in the end, peace always wins. He had money, attention, and power, but none of it could buy the one thing she carried effortlessly: grace. She didn't destroy him. She didn't need to. His own arrogance did that for her. And instead of building walls of revenge, she built bridges of healing for herself and for every woman who ever looked in the mirror and saw not enough. Years later, a small article appeared in a business magazine. It said Lucas Ward had started a quiet charity, one that funded wellness and education programs for women from disadvantaged backgrounds. The headline read, "The man who bet against love now funds it." No statement, no interview, just silent redemption. Maybe in his own broken way, he finally understood. And Amelia? She continued her work, still humble, still human. When people called her an inspiration, she only smiled and said, "I'm just someone who stopped apologizing for being real. So the next time someone laughs at your scars, your weight, your journey, remember Amelia. Remember the woman who was once used as a bet and turned it into a beginning. Because beauty fades, fame dies, but dignity, that's eternal. Real power isn't in being admired. It's in walking away from anything that tries to shrink your worth. And maybe that's the real twist. The woman the world tried to humiliate ended up healing it. And the man who thought he had everything learned what everything truly means. So tell me, story lovers, what would you have done if you were Amelia? Would you forgive, or would you walk away forever? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because sometimes your story might just heal someone else's. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories and new videos every week.